Alrighty. So we're going to be looking at something kind of agitating, but we're going to be looking at it at a different angle. We're going to be hopping into the world of the conservative Fox News fan to talk about something that we talk about a lot on this channel, which is gender. Cool. Before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and take a look at the fan art section. And this piece is a little dark, might be hard to see depending on the brightness of your phone, but it is one done by Karamba. Karamba, like every other thing Karamba posts in the Discord section, has no context given whatsoever, but it looks cool. It has the hat for Witch Suris sitting there as the ornament for the tail this time, and I really like the artwork style. It reminds me a lot of Coraline, actually, a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. That said, as always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future episode, drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and roll the intro. Said that Fox News isn't about foxes. Yeah, that's understandable. But, all right. So we have the same... we're going to have the exact same story, but it's going to be read by Fox News and then read by the Associated Press. Now, why are we going to be doing this? One, I want to see the different ways that they report on the exact same thing. And two, I want to see what happens here when we look at the comment section of this. Lady Necro, why would you do this on a fucking... Okay, you know what? Fine. It's Fox News. For the 50,001 channel points, Lady Necro has forced me at channel point gunpoint to say, oh, well. Oh, well. Okay, now we got that cringy fucking shit out of the way. Why do you guys do this to me? What is the point? What is the point of that? I just don't get it. But we're here. Yeah. Anywho, you completely forgot the armistice. Oh God, you're right. Damn it. Wait, no, the armistice doesn't. Oh yeah, shit. No, never mind. Damn it. It's actually an Arahara. Fuck. There is an armistice happening. I forgot about it. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. I'm very dumb. I guess you got a free one. Technically speaking, I mean, you paid 50,000 channel points to it. Could use my shields now, huh? Not now. I mean, it would negate it, but it's anyway. The article, the article. Let's let's go to the article. The war has taken such a toll. Suris can't recognize peace. Yeah, that's not untrue. Anyway. So, New Hampshire high schooler allegedly suspended for saying that there are only two genders. Right. That's the headline here. But if we look at the way it's presented by Associated Press, students suspended for only two gender comment sues school. Now, how are these titles different? One says that he specifically said only there are two genders, and one is a little more vague. They are constructed similarly, but they are not necessarily the same. All right. Option was never a piece. Now, the student is alleging that the school violated his free speech and religious liberties. Let's go here. Let's go ahead and talk about one thing real quick. Your religion says nothing about biology. Biology is categorically separate than your religion. Okay? Okay. Let's continue. From the Fox News article, a New Hampshire student athlete is suing the school district after he was suspended from a football game for allegedly expressing his views that there are only two genders. The lawsuit, filed in Rockingham Supreme Court November 4th, alleges that the September suspension violated the student's constitutional right to free speech and the New Hampshire Bill of Rights because he expressed his religious beliefs. The plaintiff is also aiming to block the enforcement of Exeter High School's gender nonconforming student policy because of what he says is its infringement on his First Amendment rights. Fox News has reached out to the high school, which referred all questions to the school district, and the school district not applied to Fox News. The district's policy on transgender and gender nonconforming students requires that all programs, activities, and employment practices be free from discrimination based on sex, orientation, or gender identity. And that is the extent there. Now, before we get into the comments from the Fox News viewers, let's go ahead and look at how it's presented from the Associated Press. Now, it's still a small article here. A New Hampshire student athlete is suing his school after he was suspended from a football game for allegedly expressing his views that there are only two genders. The lawsuit said that the suspension was in violation of his constitutional right to free speech and the New Hampshire Bill of Rights because he expressed his religious beliefs. And this is what the Portsmouth Herald reported. Now, I would look at the Portsmouth Herald, but it's asking me for a subscription. So as much as I would like to get more local news here, I'm getting cucked from local news. But now, the plaintiff is aiming to prohibit the high school's gender nonconforming student policy, which this is so far written almost verbatim the same way as the Fox article. The policy says that students have the right to be addressed by name and pronoun that relates to their gender identity. It also reprimands students who intentionally and repeatedly refuse to respect another student's gender identity. Oh, there is a difference in how these articles are structured. Now, having different writers is no, strange feat, but again, the actual, the Associated Press stuff is there in the beginning here. But where they differ is where we have a little bit of a conversation to be having here. Now, this section in the Fox News article just says that the district's policy requires that all programs be free of discrimination. That's it. Now, they do link the policy, but I ask you, what is the likelihood that somebody's going to click this link? It is not very high when all the information is here, and on an intuitive level, most people are going to just read this and then jump right into that comment section. So now that we know that the difference here is that they have to intentionally and repeatedly refuse to respect another's gender identity, this changes things. Is it now that a single student refused to call, say, a fellow guy on his team who just happened to be a trans guy, called them a girl once, or is it that this is a repeated violation? For this to be in accordance with these schools' policy, it would be a little closer to a repeated violation. So, now that we have our first discrepancy in the two articles, let's see what else is here. According to the lawsuit, the student suspended had been involved in conversations surrounding Spanish language pronouns on the bus. A female student who overheard the conversation said there were more than two genders, to which the suspended student argued that there was not. Now we have a difference here as well. You see, on the one article from Fox, it is framed as if he just got kicked out of a football game for saying that somebody was not the gender that they said they were. That's the way it's framed in the Fox article. But when we go over to the Associated Press article, now we actually get the context about it being a repeated thing. Soon after the bus, and it has nothing to do with the football game either. Soon after the incident, the lawsuit stated two students got into a text exchange about gender identity. Those texts were given to the administration, which resulted in the one-day suspension. So him being a football player has nothing to do with anything. It's literally just there so that the Fox News crowd, who value sports and shit like that a lot more than anything else, can tie this in to their own personal biases. The kid got kicked off of the sports team. That could affect him for life, all because he said what we all intuitively know to be true. That is the framing in the Fox article. Now, let's continue. The lawsuit claims, though, that the administrators did not have the right to suspend the student because of the text messages initiated by another student while sent off campus. The superintendent, David Ryan, said he's aware of the lawsuit and the school's in the process of reviewing the complaint with the legal counsel and will be able to share a statement once they have completed the review. Now, this is on November 10th. This is at least 12 days ago. I may end up doing a follow-up video on this later because what I'm trying to do right now is not necessarily talk about the events so much as the way that these two articles are framed and the way it is framed differently. In one, we get the barest of bits of information, and we're even added superfluous information to the report that will affect the way that the viewer reads the report. But over here on the Associated Press, we get more information about the actual stuff that's happened and where the technicality of the complaint is had. From the framing of the Fox News article, the way that this is being presented is that the kid talked about his particular religious beliefs once, potentially at a football game, and got taken out of the football game and then suspended. And that's bad. But when we look over at the Associated Press, we see that there's actually a large amount of time that this has been taking place. On a bus, it's been taking place over text messages, and it's been taking place over a period of time. We even get the information that this is about repeated instances of abuse and not just a single one. This changes the story almost completely, because now the conversation isn't about his religious rights to say a thing, it's about a technicality. The technicality that he said it while off campus, therefore. So, now let's go ahead and see what the end result of this is. Let's take a look at the comments under the Fox News article itself. From my opinion, 1, it's astonishing that there is even an issue in the school system that it's willing to fight. What happened to basic biology? Let this issue be decided by these high schoolers once they become adults. Teach them biology, not a politically influenced social science. Gender isn't biological, my opinion, 1. I'm sorry that literally the greatest extent of the scientific community agrees that there is a difference between gender and sex, and I'm sorry that you have not been caught up on that. But when it comes to the education system, we try to educate people on a couple things. 1, actual accurate basic facts where we can, and 2, how not to be a piece of shit human being. Ideally, if you are repeatedly misgendering somebody on purpose, then you're a piece of shit human being. And that's not ideal. That person's going to have a hard time once they find out that intersex people exist. Yep. Now, let's go ahead and read another one here from Just Curious. If it is accurate that a student was suspended for correctly stating that there are only 2 genders, then we have truly lost our way as a nation. Even if you are inclined to ignore the science and want to take this new age approach to gender, a governmental body cannot punish you based on the content of your speech. There is no possible way it is reasonable time, place, or manner restriction if things are as described in this article. Now, if he was interrupting a class, screaming that there are only 2 genders, the suspension would be for interrupting class, not the content of his speech. Just like if the child happened to be saying the N-word, it wouldn't be for the content of his speech. Yes, the fuck it would be. Don't even try. But here we have a very interesting example of what happens when the details of the actual event are left completely out of the article. Now, why would Fox News leave those details out of their article when the Associated Press collaborated to give information that was used in the Fox News article, literally written verbatim? I don't think I have to explain, since we all know what Fox News is, why the information has a discrepancy between one or the other, and we can literally see in the comment section the end result of that information not being there, where people are literally having to pontificate on what potentially happened, because the details of what happened were deliberately left out of the article. We'll look at one more comment before we go forward. But let's go ahead and see here. In conjunction with arguing the First Amendment issue, this student's attorney should also demand that the school district provide human DNA evidence, the same evidence deemed irrefutable in every court of law, including death penalty cases, that proves that there are more than 2 genders. Without such proof, the school cannot require students to acknowledge that which does not exist. Can we talk about things that that we acknowledge that aren't actually real, that are social constructs, like money and names. Also, you want DNA evidence that there's more than 2 genders? Cool. We'll just go ahead and sample literally anybody. We can sample anybody who just happens to be intersex. But here's the thing. This isn't what the person is looking for. This person's not looking for a solution. This person is part of a group of people influenced by Fox News. Solutions matter infinitely less than feelings. Science matters infinitely less than the idea of science and the narrative that science is on their side as a default. Herein lies the difference. We have scientific papers that have been written about the differences between gender and sex that date back to the 80s, if not more. This is not a relatively new thing. Moreover, if he's going to argue that they need DNA evidence of different genders, then we have now sat ourselves in the middle of a lovely little category error. Also, as far as what we use to determine sex, DNA evidence would show us that there are more factors involved in sex than merely your chromosomes. Your chromosomes are one factor. There's also the fact that you have different genitalia representation. There's also gonadal representation. There's also gametal representation. And then, of course, there is the thing that we all default to, phenotypical representation. These are all factors used when determining sex. But it's not set in stone, the same way that people in this comment section seem to believe that it is. And if we want to talk about something that's definitely not set in stone, gender is definitely not set in stone. Does he not know how slugs reproduce? It doesn't matter how slugs reproduce. We're not slugs. I'm just going to say this. Any argument that is brought up about different animals when it comes to sex is not a good argument because they're not talking about different animals. We're talking about people. But with that said, I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to you. We see the different ways that this is framed. We even see the end result of how this different framing manifests. So what do you think? And knowing this, are you going to take what I would hope would be the responsible approach, and when you're consuming your news, consume it from multiple sources? Don't just consume it from one. If you consume it from just one, you will see only one frame that is handed to you, and is a frame that is deliberately handed to you. That includes if you consume any news from me. Never settle on one person. With that said, as always, everyone, if you want to support my channel and what I do, please check the description below. There's plenty of ways to do so. And as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So thank you.